Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back. You'd be glad to know that we are pausing our Nahu for now and we're starting sarf. Now what is sarf? Sarf is a subject in grammar called morphology, and that is the study of words, how they are formed and their relationship to other words in the same language, and it analyzes the structure of the words, the stems, the roots, the prefixes and everything to do with that. And in the majority of cases we'll be looking at fi'ls, verbs. And a fi'l is a word stuck in the past, present or future tense, and we'll start by looking at the past tense. And the past tense in Arabic is called al-Madi. Now in English, the past tense verbs, they are simply singular words. For example, read. Okay, who read? It could be he, she or we, and we must specify the doer because otherwise you won't know who read. But in Arabic, verbs are not singular words. They come with an ingrained pronoun embedded in them already. So remember all of these detached pronouns. There is a form of verb for every single one of these, and I will use the classic fa'ala, but you can use any verb and put it in the correct form and you will obtain the al-Madi verb with a specific doer ingrained in it. But before I start, I'm going to give the definitions, the terms in Arabic for some of these titles. So we have singular, which is called wahid, have dual, which is tathniya, and we have plural, which is jama. Have third person, this is ghaib. Second person is hadir, or you can say mukhatab as well. And first person is the mutakallim. And mudhakkar is masculine, and then muannath means feminine. So if you start with the first one, if you want to say he and then a verb, you say in Arabic it would be huwa fa'ala. Now you can substitute fa'ala with any verb. This particular means he did, not just did, it means he did. If the huwa pronoun, however, which I put in front here, if I were to remove this, it would still be he did, because verbs already have an embedded pronoun within them. And the wahid, mudhakkar, ghaib verb, okay, so the description of this verb, we call it صيغة in Arabic. So the wahid, mudhakkar, ghaib, صيغة of the Madi verbs, basically the huwa version of a verb, always ends in a fatha, and this is how you can recognize if this is an al-Madi verb and it is the huwa version. The huwa version always ends with a fatha on the last letter. This fatha is not the fatha for nasab. This is a sign of this word being a past tense verb. Now it doesn't matter what the verb looks like. It can be the verb sa'ada, it can be the verb istaghfara. It doesn't matter how long and how many letters the verb is. If you listen carefully, they all end with an a sound at the end, and this a sound gives away that these are the huwa version and the past tense version of a verb. Then you have the dual version, so huma fa'ala, so you'll have a stretch with the alif, which means they too did. So if you want to make the dual version of any verb, you get the huwa version and you just add an alif at the end, and that would mean two. So it's huma fa'ala, they both did. So if you have, for example, the word istaghfara, which means he sought forgiveness, if you say istaghfara with an extra alif at the end, it would be two people sought forgiveness. And the hum version is fa'alu. You add this wow at the end. So hum fa'alu, they all did. And this alif is not part of the letters that you add. It's just that you can't have a wow sakin floating around. You have to put an alif there. That's just how the language is written. This is the jama, mudhakkar, ghaib, sigha. And you have the hiya, which is fa'alat. Okay, so to make the feminine version of a verb, the hiya version, she did something, you just add a ta sakin at the end, and that would be she did. For two women, you would say huma fa'alata, they both women did, both of those women did. So you just get this ta and you add an alif at the end. So huma fa'alata. You have hunna, it would be hunna fa'alna. So the last letter gets a sakin, and then you add a noon with a fatha, which means they did, but this only refers to plural feminine. Now for the second person, you have anta fa'alta, which means you did. There is a sakin on the third letter, and then you put a ta with a fatha at the end. And you have antuma fa'altuma. So as you can see, the ending of this is the same, and you still have the sakin on the last letter. That means that you both did. And you have antum fa'altum, which means you all did. This is the plural version. You have anti fa'alti, which is you girl did. This one has a ta with a kasra, exactly like anti. And antuma is the same thing as the masculine one. So the antuma fa'altuma means you both did again. And then it will be antunna fa'altunna, which is you all women did. And then ana is fa'altu, which means I did. You use a ta with a dhamma. And you have nahnu fa'alna, which means we did. And this could be we two people did, or we more than two people did. So this version, the nahnu version for the dual and the plural is the same. Also you have the second person being the same. However, the third person dual, that one changes. You add a ta if it is referring to feminine, whereas this dhamir actually remains the same. So نحن فعلنا is not to be confused with hunna فعلنا. There is a stretch of the there is a stretch at the end of the word, so that would mean we did. Now all of these pronouns that we have here, huwa, here, anta, anti, ana, and all of these, they are already embedded within the verb itself, so we don't need to actually explicitly mention them when we are trying to say that she did. So for example, we can just say fa'alat. Now these pronouns that are inside these verbs are called the inside doer, and these are all marfu' dhamir because the doer is always rafa. And this table will show you which doer is embedded within the verb. So if you find yourself, for example, nasartum, then you know that the inside fa'il is the Arabic term for doer, but the fa'il of fa'altum is antum, is the dhamir antum. So some technical terms, we have conjugation. So conjugation is when you put a verb under all of its forms. So we have looked at all of the forms of a verb depending on the pronoun that is embedded within a verb. That is all essentially called a conjugation table. And in Urdu, that is called gardan. And you have something that's called word form. Word form is your صيغة, and that's essentially the description of the number, gender, and person of the verb. Now the fa'il is a doer of the verb, which can be an embedded pronoun, which is an inside doer, or you have an outside one, which we'll have a look at that in a later video. Now if you don't know the conjugation table for the al-Maadi, then you can have a go and practice with these verbs. So just put the word sa'ada, nasara, istaghfara under all of the sighas. So is sa'ada, sa'ada, sa'adu, all of that. And if that's too easy, then I have this one, which is to identify the fa'il, the sigha, and then to translate the verb. So we have khalaqa, the inside fa'il is huwa, the sigha is wahid, mudhakkar ghaib, and the translation is he created. To store, iddakharna. So iddakharna is very much like fa'alna. We have the sakin and the noon at the end. So the inside fa'il here is hunna. So this is jama, mu'annath, ghaib, and that would be they stored. Then you have darabu, to hit. This is going to be hum. So that is jama mudhakkar ghaib, and it would be they hit. Sami'na, the inside doer of this is nahnu. This is going to be your jama mutakallim. We don't say tathniya mutakallim unless we are 100% sure that the people we're talking about are two, in which case we can say tathniya. Usually when we ask to do the sigha, jama mutakallim for nahnu is what we write. So that would mean we listen. Number 5, to land, habatata. This is a huma, but it is the feminine version, and we know that it's definitely feminine because the feminine huma has a ta in it. So this is tathniya mu'annath ghaib, and that would mean both landed.
La sveglia sta suonando, ma fatela tacere, perché di andare a scuola proprio voglia non ne ho. Alzarsi così presto non ha poi salutare. Ragazzi, prima o poi mi ammalerò. Invece andrei alla scuola, 100 cose devo fare. Inglese, pallavolo e perfino Latin dance. E a fine settimana non ne posso proprio più. Mi serve una ricarica per tirarmi su.
And that concludes it for today.
My time has come. You must continue your journey without me.